Happy Friday the 13th, and what a fun day it is. Skeptics come and go with certain theories, and it's fun as it is entertaining. But what do you think? Hi, my name is Jessa. Please join me as we look together the top 10 Hancock Göbekli Tepe facts you never knew. Oh, and before we begin, in the last video I was in, top 10 evil scientists that performed bizarre experiments, I gave you guys a riddle. Did you get it? The riddle was, what do you buy to eat but never consume? The answer is, drumroll please, cutlery. Your next riddle will be at the end of this video. Anyways, let's get started. Number 10, age. When it comes to Göbekli Tepe, its origins located in Turkey, archaeologists, if dated correctly, dates back further from current archaeological findings from other civilizations by roughly 6,000 years. The site is older than other famous Neolithic ancient sites like Stonehenge, which dates, if also correct, 5,000 years ago. In perspective, that would also mean Stonehenge is closer to us in time than Göbekli Tepe. At the same time, this structure is also around the same age as the Giza pyramids, if so a bit older than the pyramids, and the time it was built roughly around 12,500 years ago, which was the same time the Worm Glacial Age was ending in Europe. Over the next few thousand years, temperatures and sea levels would slowly rise, and the environment became more habitable for a range of all walks of life, including people. The people who lived in Göbekli Tepe are the Kurdish, the Iranian ethnic group that are native to the mountains region in Western Asia, which spans to southeastern Turkey, northwestern Iran, and northern Iraq, and northern Syria. And the Kurdish have mentioned when it comes to the ancient site, its uses still maintains in their cultural history since its inception, which leads us up to number 9. Number 9, uses. Now that we know in regards to its dates, a lot of the researchers have made many debates on the usages of the site and what are the purposes of its location. One theory was that the ancient hunter-gatherers constructed it for festivals, and they would use the site as a critical juncture as a transition from the nomadic hunter-gatherer to first truly settled people. Although there's no signs of domestication of crops and animals, there were animal bones within the ruins in regards to feast. To confirm, the Kurdish themselves have actually mentioned to scholars as well as archaeologists that the uses of the sites was mainly used as their traditional practices, as there is a tree on top of the hill of the area where they would hike up and dance around 7 times and leave cloths in the branches. They believe leaving a cloth on the branches that each cloth they hang, a wish they would make would come true. However, this imposes an issues as it is now a site for archaeological researchers, and now locals can no longer attend to their traditions due to these foreigners coming in and preventing them from doing what they've been doing for thousands of years. I get it, for archaeologists, they want to do research, but let the people do what they've been doing, you know what I mean? Number 8, other theories. Another theory, of course, in addition by the natives who lived there on the location of what it was for, was also used as a giant brewery. According to the German archaeologists who came to excavate Göbekli Tepe, they learned over the past 4 years that the people who built these old buildings ate vast pots of porridges and stews made from grain that the ancient people ground and processed on a nearly industrial scale. The clues of the Göbekli Tepe shows that ancient people used grains much earlier than that was thought, even before there was evidence that these plants were domesticated, which means 1,000 years prior to other civilizations they were already there to cultivate and create societal enhancements, as noted by grains and other starches fit into the diet of the people in the past. Some researchers are even trying to replicate meals like those eaten 12,000 years ago using techniques from that time. Evidence from grain cooking and brewing has come from the site's rock garden, finding a nearby field where those who use the site dump grinding stones made of basalt, limestones, and other large pieces of work stone. This quantity of stones is believed by some to be proof that the site was used to grind grain to make porridge and beer. However, although the thought of them creating beer as a rare treat, new evidence appears to show it may not be the case. Number 7, skulls. Of course, when it comes to ancient civilizations and their enhancements, there's a speculation of certain locations being used as a skull cult. At least that's what some studies on the findings of the location seems to find. Their findings made at the site appear to indicate that people who built or used the site had a strange fascination with collecting and modifying human skulls. Researchers have found that although there are no human graves but yet to be discovered, pieces of human bones have been found in the fill of the buildings and in the areas around them. But these piles found are a series of partly preserved human skulls. Although these researchers like to point out that this was unexpected, as the skulls have all been changed by humans in a way that had not been seen on sites from the same time or place, there was a noticeable trend of skull cults in Anatolia and the Levant during the early Neolithic. But this interpretation is debatable, as the presence of these modified skulls may indicate part of important rituals centered from the early Neolithic period. If anything, it showcases that the people at Göbekli Tepe gave those who passed away after death great care, and with evidence of special statuses of the people these skulls belonged to, as they had decorations and were displayed in certain specific locations at the site. Number 6, human sacrifices. Some might be apprehensive with this one, as it's still more on the basis of the theory than it is a fact. In my personal opinion, when it comes to underlying research, it still needs to be done. Unless we were able to fully time travel and see it for ourselves, every uses of the past can be up for interpretation and speculation, right? And when the discovery of those human skulls were found, like I mentioned in the previous point, there was another assumption based on the other inspection found. The T-shaped columns on the site famously have various animal-human hybrid depictions, but more more crucially for us, some of the reliefs appear to indicate the ritualistic decapitation of human bodies. Other artifacts from the site appear to support the inhabitants' fascination with heads. One small statue appears to show what have been interpreted as a gift bearer carrying a disembodied head. Yet another appears to indicate a human statue that has at some point been intentionally decapitated, and since it's Friday the 13th, it's giving Hereditary vibes, I don't know, which to be honest, great film, love me some good horror movie vibes. Number 5. Sister Sister. Considering the location and the discovery of the site, there is a high possibility that the settlers who had utilized the site and its location may have migrated somewhere nearby or further away to create another similar structure. Close to Göbekli Tepe, another site, Karahan Tepe, shares many characteristics and is often called Göbekli Tepe's sister site. Karahan Tepe was first discovered in 1997 but wasn't carried out until the research in 2000. The study of this location revealed basin-like pools carved in bedrock and a considerable number of chisels, beads, stone pot fragments, grindstones, and pestles. The fact that the arrowheads and scraper blades and other stone tools made from flint or obsidian were found suggests that most people at this location hunted, gathered, or raised animals for food. This is different from the Neolithic settlements, which were based on more farming. Even the studies point out that the Karahan Tepe resembles the Göbekli Tepe 2 layers, like how both sites have 266 pillars with the T-shaped architectural elements and animal reliefs showing snakes, insects, birds, and the heads and forelegs of a rabbit, legs and tails of a gazelle, and hind legs of an unidentified animal which may have been extinct. Karahan Tepe had more depictions of human beings than at a Göbekli Tepe, which might show that people were starting to see themselves as separate from animals, but this wasn't the only possible sister location, as there are 11 other unexcavated sites. Number 4. The darkest time. About the same time as Göbekli Tepe was being constructed, one of the most significant environmental stresses ever impacting our species was underway, called the Younger Dryas. It was the worst and longest break in the warming of the Earth's climate, and occurring roughly between 14,500 and 12,900 years ago. The decline into a mini ice age happened very quickly, probably over a few decades. This resulted in glaciers advancing, giving most of the temperate northern hemisphere a drier and harsher climate. The cause is not fully understood, but the theories include interruption of ocean thermal currents or a comet impact. And for humans, the way they survived the Younger Dryas, the warmer and wetter climate in the southern hemisphere also helped them in human migration into South America. At the same time, the Younger Dryas in the northern hemisphere forced population either to return to nomadic lifestyle or to seek refuge in a few hospitable areas, which resonates in the time of the Göbekli Tepe, as its construction probably also helped those residing at the time during the climate's change. Outside the time being, there is some speculation Younger Dryas could happen again in maybe 100,000 years from now if humans don't stop polluting the atmosphere. Number 3. An observatory. Again, could be a fact, could be a theory, but either way, when it comes to human civilization, we do evidently come to terms that we're just on a rock floating in space till there's new discoveries that make us realize that we're all small and dumb. But that's the beauty of humanity, as we're all just trying to figure stuff out. In some claims, knowing the site we call Göbekli Tepe was clearly important to those who built it, and in some cases there's a possibility that the site was also one of the earliest astronomical observatories in history. In 2 suggestions, the first based on the fact that the location appears aligned with the night sky, notably with the star Sirius. Another contends that Göbekli Tepe's carvings document a comet impact that occurred at the end of the Ice Age. Of course, if these claims are correct, as the subject of facts versus speculations are only based on the evidence we can present, at the time being it would mean Göbekli Tepe would be the world's oldest astronomy site. However, it must be noted that most researchers and teams on the site are still apprehensive, even though the site is very well maintained. The major purposes of the site is still up for debate, as there will always be more discoveries to be made and researchers to be had, as there will always be something. Number 2. Graham Hancock's theory. Now, with all this research and information on Göbekli Tepe leaves a question on what does Graham Hancock have to do with the title of this video? Well, the only way I could break down these topics like an essay is to firstly understand what we do know aside Graham's thoughts, that the previous facts and research based on the Kurdish, the people who actually lived there, and the archaeologists who excavated the location and took the time to investigate and develop their own findings. Hancock, however, does not agree with the archaeologists that the earliest known civilizations arose independently. He speculates that there was an advanced civilization during the last ice age that was destroyed in a natural cataclysm during the Younger Dryas, as I mentioned in the previous one, due to the planet's climate, and that is that few survivors traveled the world introducing agriculture, monumental architecture, and astronomy to hunter-gatherers, giving rise to civilizations. Although it's also important to note that archaeologist Flint Dibble and many other archaeologists have pointed out that Graham's claims reinforce white supremacist ideals, as it strips away the indigenous people of their rich heritage and instead giving credits to aliens and white people. In that in mind, most of his claims and methods have been widely regarded as pseudo-archaeology, which in some cases like to cherry-pick evidence and misrepresent them as facts. And for that reason, why it's important to note when it comes to discoveries, there's always something that can be measured and reasonable by all means. Number 1. Is it a lost city? In regards to Graham Hancock, his prominent theory was that Göbekli Tepe was built by the survivors of the lost city of Atlantis 11,600 years ago. Hancock claims that the people of Atlantis survived a comet striking striking the Earth at the end of the last ice age, limiting all traces of advanced civilizations, and that the survivors of Atlantis then settled among the hunter-gatherers in Turkey and together built Göbekli Tepe, similar to Noah's Ark's theory. Built at the end of the last ice age, according to Graham, is the mysterious stone temple complex of Göbekli Tepe in Turkey is one of the greatest challenges of the 21st century in archaeology. The overall consensus among pseudo-archaeologists, including Graham, is that Göbekli Tepe was built by the survivors of the lost city who lived through a global catastrophe event that eliminated all trace of human civilization prior to the Ice Age. There are two popular versions of this pseudo-archaeological claim, the first being that Göbekli Tepe was created by the survivors of Atlantis, and the second was that of the biblical story of Noah's Ark. Yep. Regardless of these claims, there are still theories and assumptions based on other facts. Archaeologists as well as the indigenous who lived there have already said what the site was originally used for. With all the information we have so far on the subject, we can come to our own conclusion based on what we have, but when it comes to these sites, time can only tell, till we figure out what these things are actually used for. For example, if 1,000 years they find our Walkmans from the late 90s, they assume that we used to hurl them to hunt. We'd probably laugh really hard and say no, they weren't. They were tiny discs inside these giant Walkmans that we used were not used to launch at our enemies, but they were used to make mixtapes on our old computers using LimeWire and using Sharpies to label which mixtape it was. Do you remember what LimeWire was? I certainly do, because those were the days. Plus, if you've seen that movie Time Machine where Vox and Alexander were teleported in the future where the world became primitive, they had to explain to the humans what humans did before the Earth got destroyed. Do you see what I'm saying? Either way, I'm sure however we survived back then, we're living proof now that it worked. So, what was your favorite? Did you learn anything interesting today? Let me know. Oh yeah, your next riddle. Are you ready? Where do you take a sick boat? Be sure to put your answer in the comments below and I'll reveal the answer in the next one. Top 10 evil places that cursed real families. And that's all for today. Thank you for joining me. My name is Jessa. Be sure to like and subscribe. And I'll see your beautiful smart faces in the next one. Bye.